Hello, hello, and welcome back to Happiness by Habit, the podcast where we unpack the daily rituals, mindset shifts, and soulful strategies that help us lead happier, more fulfilling lives. Today's guest is someone who truly walks the walk when it comes to well being, resilience, and purposely living. I am so honored to welcome Sharon Brown, the powerhouse behind Self Care You Academy, where she helps entrepreneurs and leaders prioritize self care without sacrificing their success. With a background in social work, emotional wellness, and financial empowerment, Sharon is on a mission to help us sustain authenticity and sanity through the chaos while preventing burnout and renewing our minds. Her frameworks are empowering, actionable, and filled with grace. And trust me, you are going to walk away feeling seen, supported, and stronger than ever. Sharon, welcome to Happiness by Habit.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to come here. It's just such wonderful being here. Thank you so much.
We are so happy to have you. Let's begin with your story. What led you to create Self Care You Academy and step into this space of guiding others through chaos and burnout?
Yeah, so for me, it is it's a combination of things. It's personal as well as professional. And on the professional side, as you said, I'm a social worker. I've been working in mental health for over 2 decades. And along the way of different experiences that I've had in different places that I've worked, we're always learning. But I would say the three main places that I work in which I saw the need for self-care. The first when I worked for an insurance company. And then
Uh-huh.
the last two is what really helped the most. It was when I worked in a crisis phone bank. I'm saying phone bank, a crisis
Oh,
center. And then
uh-huh.
also when I worked in the emergency room. And when I worked for the behavioral health call center, I was able to really see people pain more. I saw it more when I worked individual. But what came to me is that, oh, in mental health, where are we teaching people how to, it's the prevention before the prevention, if that makes sense, you know?
Yes.
It's like how we're teaching people how to self-regulate. What does that mean? How we're teaching people how to sit in their own grief, let alone helping someone else. And just the basic of just everyday stuff. Because when I worked in, especially like the emergency room in the behavioral call center, we help individuals who were homeless to executives. But the thing that they had in common was really the same is how do you self-regulate? What do you do in time of being overwhelmed? And then how that overwhelmness turn into crisis. Because usually it's not that someone just has a crisis, it turns into. And then the second part of that question, as I said, it was personal. And the personal part of it is what really pushed me to say, hey, I've got to spread this with anyone else. And that one was two-part as well. It was with the breakup. And
Mhm.
my heart was broken. I was crying for 40 days and 40 nights. And I always like to
Wow.
say, even though I cried for that long, just remember it's not always about the person. It's our overall what's going on inside of us. Any abandonment issues we've had, any subliminal things or internal stuff that we don't even realize. And so with that, even by being a therapist, I knew that talk therapy wasn't going to work. I was just too
Mm.
heartbreaking. I didn't want to talk about it. Sometimes talk can be too much for individuals. And one thing that people don't talk about a lot when it comes to just being well is the visceral effect of pain. And that's what it
Oh.
does to our body. We feel it, but we don't really talk about it. And so that led me to yoga. And then from there, other things that I did, but those are the main things that led me to the Self Care U Academy.
Wow, I love it. Very interesting story. What are some key takeaways you got from these experiences? Tell me, walk us through the process and especially and through the suggestions that you might have for somebody that is going through a situation of crisis and how they can overcome these difficulties.
Yeah, a couple of things that came to me and that pretty much still drives me. And one of the things is that I learned is that we all need healing from something and don't even know it. And even though I am a therapist, I'm like, hey, life is good, and everything. And, yeah, I grew up in a, single parent household, low income, environment, but I just say it's just a part of life. It doesn't stop you for who you are. But what I learned that even though my dad wasn't in my home, and I'm like, I have no ill feelings about him, and I don't, and I didn't. But what I came to realize through that experience is that there are some daddy issues. Like
Mm,
sometimes for some individuals, because I did discover, I would say there's some characteristics of the fatherless daughter syndrome. And so you're
mm,
dealing with this in life and you don't even know it. And so anything
mm,
that I would suggest to someone, no matter how well you're doing in life, in order for us to really like go deep, if you grew up in a single parent household, it's a combination of both. You can go and get therapy. Some people need it, some people may not. But therapy or not, we have to go deep within ourselves.
mm,
And then the other thing that I learned too is that we don't prepare for challenges or we run away from them. But the thing is to be able to have discernment of what to do, but to have the tools. It's like how to self-regulate, how to handle disagreement. Because it's not just, if someone has a different opinion, it's just a different opinion and that's okay, not to take things personal. And especially like when it comes to leaders and when it comes to being an entrepreneur, because you're dealing with so many different people. But how do you handle that, in and of itself? And so the main thing that people can do is create that space where you can have that self-awareness and reflect on experiences on your life, on your job, of what had happened and what you can take away from it. Because there's always something. It doesn't necessarily mean it need to be negative, but what is it that you can have where it can help you with something else? And especially as being an entrepreneur and a leader.
absolutely. One of the things you mentioned is your experience working with in the insurance world. We all know that the best time to get insurance is before you need it, because when you actually need it, might be too late. I'm sure some of the most traumatic experiences you have seen happen to others was related to that about not being ready for the emergency for the difficult situation. So let's talk a little bit about how people can be ready for that, how they can prepare.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that too, because even with the insurance, it's twofold. Because, like in mental health, I work for the insurance companies, like doing pre-search, like someone who
Mm-hmm.
needs hospitalization or specialized program and outpatient therapy. And even with that, it helped me kind of see people really do not be prepared.
Mm,
Let's say if someone is a family member or even themselves be diagnosed with someone on the autism spectrum or even dementia. So we have all of those things in between. And then when it comes to insurance products, let's say outside of that, because I am a licensed insurance broker as well, and that
mm,
really opened my eyes up to a lot of different things. And so when it comes to that, one thing that people don't look at is the different things that can happen, like heart attack, strokes, and those diagnoses that I just mentioned, and anything in between. And so it's really important to be able to look at your finances and look at your money as more so as how can I live my best healthy life? What are the
Mhm.
things that I can do? What things that I need to put in place? What resources that I need? And like say, for instance, if someone is in need of a certain type of treatment that insurance may not pay completely for, or even having someone having a heart attack or stroke, so that it won't deplete all of your money. And so
Mm.
when we can look at it in a different way, more so as a need for our betterment, so we can be healthy and well in all ways. And I'm hoping that people can really see it in that way and not have to be so dependent on the government or either some other entities. Yeah, they'll be helpful. I said, yeah, if you qualify, apply for it, but also to have your own as well.
Yeah, I think it's very important, especially for the more crucial things in life, to have a plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, as many plans as we need so we can have a way out. And we need to think about these things before the chaos happens, right? When we have
Yes,
clarity.
most definitely. And if you don't mind, I'd like to share a personal story too, along with that. Which is one
Absolutely.
of the reasons, especially when it comes to, let's just say life insurance is why, and there's different types of why it's so important. Like with my parents, with both of them, my mom and my stepdad, but towards the end of their life, they had like just lots of medical challenges and issues. And that's another reason, like when it came to self care, like a lot of things were happening at the same time. So that even sped up and helped me with my own self care. But when it comes to the insurance and thinking, like with my parents, they were financially comfortable. So you don't think about it. Like if you're financially comfortable, you don't think that you need anything, in which for the
Mm-hmm.
most part, they did not. However, I would say it delayed in getting certain help, or and it wasn't enough because even with my
Mm.
stepdad, he ended up, like with 100% disability with the military. So it's like, oh, that's good. Yes. However, he ended up having, a double amputee. Somewhere along the way, my mom had a heart attack or stroke. They did end up living in independent living, which that was very helpful, but it came to where they needed assisted living. And pretty much we had to do like a family intervention to say, hey, this is really needed. We're not able to help you, with all the care that you need. And so it took a year for my stepdad to be able to come to that decision because most of the finances was coming from him. And I respect that. And they ended up going to assisted living. But even along the way, when it came to home aid assistance, yeah, the military helped pay for his. And like with my
Mm-hmm.
mom, sometimes it was out of pocket, sometimes it was with the insurance. But what I realized, even if it is from the insurance, sometimes it's still not enough because sometimes
Mm.
somebody may need it more than 8 hours. They may need it for 24 hours. And so, again, being financially comfortable doesn't always mean that that is enough because with more financial freedom, that can really help. And then, like with life insurance, what people don't realize, this pretty much like we talked about before, of getting certain things in place before you need it. If we have been aware of certain type of life insurance, let's say with living benefits, and that's pretty
Mm.
much for individuals who have a heart attack or stroke, cancer, or double amputee, that can help them. That means that they can get a portion of the life insurance to help them with that. And that can help with your family because even though you're going to do what you need to do for your family, but it's hard being a caregiver. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine. We all face storms. What practices or mindset shifts have helped you personally stay rooted during chaotic seasons?
Yeah, the thing that really just helps me the most is me coming back to myself. So I talk a lot about sitting in silence, and sitting in silence is different for everyone. But one thing I will say, Volunteer to sit in silence before life makes you sit, and we don't want
Mm,
life to make us sit, you know what I'm saying? We don't
right.
want that. So sitting in silence is so important. And then it allows you to sit with yourself because you can monitor what's going on in your body, if there's any tension. So you can do that breathing. But then also where you're able, to just breathe and allow that breath to come through. And then the other thing is sitting in silence. Sometimes it doesn't always mean to like completely recruit because special about being a business owner and being an entrepreneur or a leader is that sometimes we may need to come up with a game plan for something or to
Mm-hmm.
be able, the different things that we do as entrepreneurs. And so that's another way to use sitting in silence so you can get those creativity thoughts and everything flowing. And so, but the main thing I usually almost always, because I do that
Uh-huh.
on a daily basis, is to sit in silence.
So powerful and so difficult yet because we have even when well first of all some people might say we don't have time to sit in silence, but we should, as you say, we should make the time, otherwise we're going to have to sit in silence and not by decision. I have a friend who went to India for a month and staying kept a vow of silence, I think it's called, for a month. I mean she was just working with the monks in India, and it was like just stay in silence for the whole time and just doing chores in the to help them in keeping the facility and things like that. That were like, wow, that must be a life changing experience. But it is so important to give ourselves that time to be in silence and let our thoughts and our because a lot of times in silence is where we can come up with the best solutions.
It
Interesting.
really is.
Most people struggle with guilt when they slow down. What would you say to the leader who feels like taking care of themselves means letting others down?
Yeah. The thing with that, one way to look at letting others down, that's temporary. It's not that you're not, discounting how they feel, but that is temporary compared to your purpose, your goals, whether it's your goal for the day or your purpose. And the other thing when it comes to that is you cannot do anything with an empty cup. You
I was just thinking
really
about that. That's absolutely right.
yeah, you really have to feel your own cup. And one way of doing that is, we always kind of know the story about you can take someone, to the pond and things like that. And so I have a version of that of about giving people water. It's like someone can ask you for a cup of water and you can give them, the first time you're like, oh yeah, here's the cup of water. But then they come back. But then as they are coming back, you stop digging your well, Like, are you digging a well or are you digging a ditch? And then they come back again and you're like, oh, wait a minute. I don't know if I'm going to give them the water because I'm running out. And so if we keep giving people all of our water, the well really does run dry. And then as leaders, we don't have the energy and, the thing that we need, especially to lead others. So just know that the guilt, that's going to be temporary too. And align it with your goal for that day. If it's an emergency, of course, we all know that's something different. And again, clarify emergency for them or is it a true emergency? Because that's a difference too.
Right. Yes.
But just know that, they would be mad at you temporarily because in everything that you do is connected to, the purpose that you have.
Interesting, because there are some people that are givers, some are takers, and we need to pay attention because there are some people that typically dry you out, like they keep demanding and requesting and demanding from you, but it's okay to say no when you are not in a position to help, especially because, as you say, we need to keep our cup full, no? Otherwise, we cannot help others. So that's very important and very difficult yet for many people, I would assume, to be able to say no to people that needs help. But it's okay, and it's better to say no temporarily. Otherwise, then you're gonna be in a very difficult position where you are not going to be of any help to others because you're not you will need help instead, right?
That's so, so true when it comes to that. And even when you just said that, it reminds me too, which is, about us being humans, which is the hardest part is like when it comes to emotions and then other people's emotions and the impact that it has. And for whatever reason, we've gotten this message or either think, as long as we can, like make other people happy and give them everything that they want, that's the best thing. And that's not always their thing. And the thing is, it needs to be in alignment with what our purpose is and our goal with that day. Because each time we do things that's outside of that, then we get farther away
Hmm.
for our true purpose.
Absolutely. Burnout is everywhere right now, especially for caregivers, high achievers, and creatives. What signs do you look for, and how do you recommend people start the recovery process?
Yeah, when it comes to the side, most individuals, really I'm gonna say this first. One sign that people don't really think about, and I look at it as a sign, is they start complaining. They start complaining a lot. It's like they're not happy, with their life, what they're doing. So complaining is one of the first signs that I see. And then the other one, lack of interest or less energy. And so those are the main ones because those things, like when you don't have an interest in something, you don't have the energy, then you're not going to be able to do, like whatever task or, and you're thinking you need this rest, but it's a different type of rest, I would say. So
Mm-hmm.
those are pretty much the signs that I see. And then when it comes to things that they can do is to really do that self-check-in. Again, earlier we talked about, sitting in silence. And sometimes people think sitting in silence is like, oh, I'm sitting in silence. And it's not always that. Sometimes it's just taking, I'm going to say, even before you sit in silence, take a sacred pause. Just pause just for a moment and do a quick check-in of what is it? Where am I? Within your mind, within your body, within your soul, and what do I need right now? Pretty much when you are able to do that, then that will guide you or where you need to go next.
Absolutely. I think also from personal experience, I think sleeping, for instance, is something so basic but so important. And some people might overlook this, but I notice when I don't sleep enough time, then I'm not in a condition to help anybody. So
Yeah.
when that happens, there has been a couple of times where I was like, oh, okay, time out. I'm gonna take a break because if I don't take a nap right now, it's not gonna be good for anybody. So it's good just to stop, say I need to take a break, sleep or coffee, whatever is needed, but it's okay to do it, to go ahead and do it because it's at the end of the day, it's going to be best for everyone, for sure. What other things do you recommend to pay attention? Like sleeping, what else?
Yeah, like I say, definitely when it comes to sleeping and also just how you look at things.
Mm-hmm.
I always say everything comes back to us. And so
Mm-hmm.
what that means is what are the things that you are doing? How are you looking at life? And then how are you feeling things within your body? Because if anything that I did learn, like I say on my path, is we don't pay attention to our body as much as we should. And we ignore a lot of things, even though we feel it's, oh, this tightness in my shoulder, oh, my stomach. And so really pay attention to those signs because you'll be able to do one or two things. Just know that it could be just related to stress or it could be something else as well that may really need to be checked out. And so when you're able to pay attention to your body, then you'll know, pretty much what you need to do to make things be a little bit more healthier for you. So be in the habit of paying attention to yourself, and that's not selfish at all.
Absolutely. I love that. Listen to your body, right? Like because our bodies are perfect. And then when something is not working properly is when the alarms come up, like a headache, pain or different things. So it's very important. I love that. Absolutely. Let's talk about routines. What are a few realistic habits or daily wellness reps someone can begin practicing today to protect their space and their sanity?
Yeah, again, I am going to go back to sitting in silence and breathing. I believe that those two are the most important things. And when it comes to sitting in silence, just like I said, you check in to see what you need. Because the other thing is, even when it comes to breathing or breath work, a lot of times the first thing that comes to somebody's mind is, it's like breathing in silence. Let me take, no, sometimes you may need to do a rapid breath. You may need to, because
Mm,
either you would need to do something to calm down, to settle down, or to boost your energy. So
mm,
sometimes, like just doing the slow breath, it will settle you, but it may not always like give you the energy that you need. Sometimes you
mm.
may need, that rapid breath, when you're breathing in, like 25 times and then you breathe out and things like that. And so those are definitely, again, pay attention to yourself, do the, self-awareness, self-evaluation, and then breathing, because we overlook breathing so much, even though we do it regularly, but it's certain practices that we can do in which that can help us, because it's either going to boost our energy or at least settle it down.
Yes, absolutely. So important. So it's something we do daily, like all day. Is we need to something we must do to in order to exist. Yet
Yeah.
it's so overlooked. Let's talk. Do you know the name of this podcast is Happiness by Habit, Sharon?
Hmm.
And so I would love to know more of your own happy habits. We talk about breathing. We talk about silence. What are other habits that come to mind?
Yeah, one of my happy habits is I love learning, and especially learning
Mm-hmm.
things about, how the mind works. Like some of my friends, like, Sharon, you listen to something again. They're thinking that I'm doing it for motivation. I'm like, no, I really love, like, let's say there can be one topic, but of how different people can view that one topic. And so one of the things I do, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to, a lot of YouTube things, and just really learning about people, places, and things. And so that's one of the
Uh-huh.
things I get my joy out of. And then the other thing I really like doing is to be able to rest. And when I say rest, it doesn't always like really mean sleeping, but it's just
Mm-hmm.
really just tuning in to myself and just doing those things. And then, of course, being able to talk to family and friends as well.
Absolutely, that always helps. Let's talk about your why. What is your reason in life, Sharon?
Yeah, and so I truly believe, and especially when I think back, just like even as far back as in high school, as far back as I can remember, is that something was just put in me to help others, And like I told you, I grew up in a single parent household in a low income environment, and I could just remember, like in the news, they're talking about, what was it, teenage pregnancy and single parents. But I'm like, when my family isn't like this, let me go out and help other people, you know?
Mm, mm-hmm,
And it has just been put on me, and so but I've always been in a place is that my thing is to help others help
mm,
themselves, and so my main purpose, and especially for entrepreneurs and leaders, is to give you the tools so that you can have space for others, but you would need to create your own space, and I kinda call it like your sacred space, so it's solo sacred space where you can create your own, but then in order to support others and have the capacity is to be able to create the social sacred space. Because there's so much that's going on in the world and, in people's personal lives. And especially if you're an entrepreneur or a leader or a supervisor somewhere, there's so much that comes on you. So, when it comes to all of that, is to really to give people the tools to be able to be of service. Because again, because in every day, our cup isn't going to be completely full. So that's one way that you can fill your own.
Absolutely. And that is, you touch on something very important because we are responsible for our own happiness and well being. That is, we should have that expectation clear because it's not like somebody's going to come and save us. We are responsible for our well being. So when we feel our cup is getting low, it's a good time to recharge and do whatever it takes to make it happen, right?
Yeah.
Sharon, you work with leaders. What are some things you do to help them? And what let's talk about of your about your work with leaders. Walk us through that process.
Yeah, one of the main things that I do, I'm going to say, is really educate. And
Mm-hmm.
this is just so passionate for me. It's really to open the doors to give them permission to know that it's okay to take care of yourselves because of the fact you need that in order to lead and then lead by example as well. And so that's the main thing is opening up the communication when it comes to self-care and to redefine what self-care is. Because for a lot of people, they think of self-care as the bubble baths, and eating chocolate and the massages. And all of those things are important. And I do want to say massages are really important. So
Mm-hmm.
it has more of a self-care benefit than people think because it does more than just relax you. And for people who are massage therapists, they know what I'm talking about. But for
Mm-hmm.
regarding the other things, it's like to build up to have the character to be able to deal with disagreements, to have the character to be able to deal with, let's say, especially like individuals who are supervisors, and you're going to have at least one employee that they may experience an illness or a death in the family. So how do you support that? That kind of goes like beyond on what the policies and procedures are. So how do you
Mm-hmm.
deal with that as an entrepreneur? What are you doing to build up the fortitude and the courage to handle adversity? So to be
Mm.
able to say, hey, yeah, even though you're ambitious and everything, I've been there too, but how do we really take care of ourselves? Because of anything that I learned that I've already said that I've experienced, heartache, experienced, medical challenges with my parents. And like now they both are deceased, but what do I need to do to take care of myself? And they're not just, those experiences, they are a part of my life, but
Mm-hmm.
where I'm not stagnated in it and I can still move forward when it comes to my purpose in life is to be able to help others so they can support others as well.
I love that. Absolutely. For someone who is feeling overwhelmed and unsure where to start, what is the one piece of advice or encouragement you would offer them right now?
Yeah, if they're feeling overwhelmed, have that sacred pause.
Mm.
Pausing, pausing, pausing. Do not think that you need to go out and do something or add something or anything like that. Just pause, evaluate, and do what's next. And just with that, it's just so important. And I would say before we even like say just get into that, another message that I'm trying to convey to people is that the study of self.
Mm.
It's like even though I'm a mental health, therapist, yeah, I have that type of training. But to be honest, I learned more about the mind, body, and spirit and soul is when I got into yoga, when I started studying meditation, when I studied Reiki, when I studied, looked at consciousness from different perspectives. And so when you learn about being human, being and what you need, then I think that's where people can understand, okay, now I see why I need to breathe. Now I see why I need to pause. But with your initial question, take that pause to slow down, to look around, to check and see where you are and what you need.
Absolutely. That's really powerful. and can make a difference, a big difference. Thank you so much, Sharon, for bringing your heart, wisdom, and healing energy to the show today. It was really a pleasure to have you. You reminded us that self care isn't selfish, it's foundational, and it's a legacy we build every single day. Your mission with Self Care You Academy is changing lives, and I am so honored to we got you to share your voice right here. To our listeners, do not forget to follow Sharon on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook, and visit selfcareuacademy.com to explore her amazing programs and resources. And remember, peace isn't found in a perfect day. It's found in the habits we choose to protect our energy, nurture our minds, and lead with authenticity. Keep making room for yourself one small habit at a time. Thank you, Sharon. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.